All right, good morning. What is up, everybody? So it is Monday. I don't even know the dates anymore. Monday, some like last Monday in March. And I like to be filled with positivity and encouragement. And I hate to talk about negative stuff, but I do think it's important to talk about negative stuff sometimes because I think it's important to know what enemies you're up against. When you know what enemies you're up against, then I think you can properly fight battles. And so, there's a million and one things that we could talk about. A lot of stuff I just want to reiterate from last week, but a couple of the things that I wanted to get in today. I was listening to a podcast with John Gordon, who has written so many good books. I can't even name them all here. I want to buy all of his books. He's an awesome guy. But anyways, I was listening to a podcast with him, and he was talking about his new book actually that's coming out, and he's going to talk about the 5 Ds that can destroy your team. And so I thought I'd take just a second to kind of talk about these. I know we talked about the 5 dysfunctions of a team, and I think all that stuff is critically important, and we can review that. But reviewing these 5 Ds I thought was important too. And so number 1 is doubt. And so I'm going to go through them all really quickly. Honestly, I think we should do a deep dive into these, but for Monday morning, you guys can only take so much from me, so I get it. So I'm going to give you real quick the 5 Ds, and we'll talk about them really quickly. So 1 is doubt. 2 is distortion of lies. 3 is distraction. 4 is division. And 5 is ultimately discouragement. And when you get those 5 Ds and all those 5 Ds start acting against you, they all lead to destruction and just destroying you, destroying your team. And this works not just for even like a business, but this also works for personal relationships. You remember at the beginning of the year, I talked about, listen, this business is all about relationships, right? And so we all have relationships amongst each other, with our vendors, with our buyers, with our sellers, with everybody, right? And so it's why this holds so true to, both business and in the outside world. And so he talked about the fact that there's importance to know like what the antidote is to these things. So if we can be mindful that these 5 things are going to work to try to destroy us and destroy our team, then we have to be extra vigilant in this time to look for the antidotes to those 5. So the antidote to doubt is to trust. We talked a lot about that in the beginning of the year. Like, is there trust amongst us, and how do we build that trust? And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Distortion of lies, obviously the opposite to that would be truth. Making sure that we're telling people as much truth as we can. Granted, yes, this is uncertain times. I don't exactly know when I'm going to be able to close in your house, but making sure that we're working to be truthful with ourselves and those around us. And distraction, this is probably one of my biggest ones for right now, is distraction. And we have to focus, right? And actually, we talked about this at the beginning of the year as well. It's so easy to get distracted and that we had to focus. And I feel like we were doing so damn good. We were all getting focused into exactly what we needed to. And then, boom, something came out of left field to kind of distract us all. And so we just have to be aware that, yes, this is something that we have to be aware of, but not afraid of. Go on a whole nother tangent about be aware, but not be afraid. And so we have to be aware of what distractions are there. Keep ourselves educated, keep ourselves safe, right? But, allowing us to, one, not lose focus on what we need to from a work standpoint, but then also it allows us to redirect our focus of what's important going into our personal lives. As you start to see people lose everything, and including, there's a whole lot more talk about, death, let's be honest, right? And it helps you really kind of appreciate what you do have and focus in on the things that are important. So number 4 was division. And so we have to work on unity, bringing each other together. And again, I think this is so fitting for the time in terms of not just the business-wise, but that us as a community, us as a society, us as a human race, finding ways to become united rather than divided. Oh, I could go on another tangent about how this is working by some to actually divide when it should be bringing us closer together and united. Maybe not physically closer together, but socially, spiritually. Keep your physical distance, but everything else. And 5, discouragement. And I know the antidote for discouragement is encouragement, and I know that that's something that I want to work on. I know sometimes how I come at problems might be a little bit more discouraging, and I need to work on being more encouraging. I'll own that, right? But even amongst ourselves, we want to be careful about not just listening to the bad voices in our head, but actually talking to ourselves positively, like We can do this. I can do this. Let's get up. Let's get moving, and let's get things going. And so, there was 4 C's that they talked about in helping you kind of overcome all this. And one is communication. And I want to be careful, like, we're no longer together like we used to be. So how do we communicate? In many ways, we were kind of set up. The Skype channels and all this stuff where sometimes people will look at those as distractions. If they're used properly, they're not distractions, and they're only used for this communication. I was listening to another training with Tom Ferry, and he was talking about now is the time to over-communicate. If we thought that we weren't communicating well before with each other or with our buyers, with our sellers, now more than ever, we need to be over-communicating. So the first C was communication. 2, connection. And this was all put together at a time pre-COVID of how important all this stuff was. And now in today's world, how much more difficult is it to remain feeling connected? We feel so isolated now. I lose my mind in these 4 walls if I'm just in here and don't feel like a true connection to people. And so using our technology, using our Zoom videos, our Skype videos, and those sort of things to feel connected. Use those Skype chats. I know a lot of those Skype chats have been pretty... No communication in there. Maybe you guys are communicating in other ways. Maybe you're having phone calls and that kind of stuff, but don't lose that connection amongst each other. Commitment. We got to remain committed to the goal and the purpose and to each other and to our team. And lastly, the 4th C is to care. And I know I do sometimes. I feel like maybe my message gets lost sometimes in KPIs and all that kind of stuff. And I want to work. Unfortunately, our quarterly is probably going to be in the midst of this whole social distancing, so we'll have to see in a couple weeks what we're going to do for that. But I want to make sure when we're sitting down, however that might look, however that might be for our next quarterly, that we're all coming together and understanding how we're coming at all these things. Because I don't want to lose my actual care and concern for everybody on this team into just the ultimate numbers of KPIs. And I don't know. That's how I'm going to end it. I think I'm running out of time. I got my first call coming up here in less than a minute. So let's all be aware of those things, right? And try to take a little extra step to work against them and stay strong, stay safe out there, and let's stay connected. Let's stay communicating. Let's stay strong as a people, not just even as a business, but because we do care, love, and have concern for everybody that's on this team. We've got to stay, connected to be able to help each other out. I promise you, if you keep yourself in your own head, listening to the own stories that you tell yourself in your head, and caught up in just the negative news channel, you're going to sink yourself into this downward spiral. But knowing what the enemy is, knowing what's against us, makes it a lot easier to kind of fight it and to break out of those habits, break out of those ways, and focus on what we need to be focused on to get through to the other side. Taking those steps to increase our trust, telling people the truth, focusing on what matters, and to us from a business standpoint, but again, also from a personal standpoint. What are those actual things that matter? Keeping us united despite all this, encouraging each other. I think encouragement is so huge. Let's encourage the team. Let's fill up this Skype chatter with great news and great words of encouragement that there is going to be another day, that there's going to be a better day on the other side of all this, and then we're pushing all through it. So that's what I've got for you today. Happy Monday, and I'll see y'all soon.